A struggling artist serving tables to pay for her mother's cancer treatment meets a mysterious billionaire who offers her $1 million for one night as his companion. What starts as a business arrangement becomes something neither of them expected. Welcome back, dear friends and story lovers. Tonight we bring you a tale where love is tested, secrets come to light, and fate takes an unexpected turn. Every moment will pull you in deeper, and every choice could change everything. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments. And if this story touches your heart, subscribe, share it with someone who believes in true love, and hit the bell so you never miss the next chapter. The autumn rain hammered against the windows of Palazzo Milano, like angry fists demanding entry. Inside San Francisco's most exclusive restaurant, crystal glasses clinked against porcelain plates while soft classical music attempted to mask the conversations of the wealthy elite. Sophia Chen wiped her trembling hands on her black apron for the third time in 5 minutes. The paint stains under her fingernails, remnants of a dream she could no longer afford to chase, seemed to mock her. As she gripped the silver serving tray, at 24, she carried the weight of two worlds: the vibrant canvases that remained blank in her tiny studio apartment, and the harsh reality of medical bills that grew larger each month. Her warm brown eyes, rimmed with exhaustion from another sleepless night, scanned the dining room filled with people who spent more on a single meal than she made in a week. 3 months ago, everything changed when her mother Maria received the diagnosis that shattered their small families. Fragile stability. Stage 3. Breast cancer. The words still echoed in Sophia's mind like a death sentence she refused to accept. Table 7 needs their wine refilled, called Alina Rodriguez, the restaurant manager who had become Sophia's unlikely guardian angel. Alina understood struggle in a way the wealthy patrons never could, often assigning Sophia the best tables, where generous tips might buy another day of hope. As Sophia approached table 7, she noticed the man sitting alone seemed different from their usual clientele. He stared through the rain-streaked window with an intensity that suggested he was seeing something far beyond the bustling street outside. His dark hair was disheveled, as if he'd been running anxious fingers through it. And despite his perfectly tailored suit, tension radiated from his shoulders like heat from a fire. Lucas Montenegro, though Sophia didn't know his name yet, was worth $3 billion on paper. At 32, he had built a revolutionary social media platform from his college dorm room, transforming himself from a lonely kid with too many ideas into one of the most powerful men in Silicon Valley. But tonight, success felt like a prison built from other people's expectations and his own impossible standards. "Excuse me, sir," Sophia said softly, not wanting to startle him from whatever distant place his mind had traveled. "Would you like me to refill your wine?" Lucas looked up, and time stuttered to a halt. Sophia's natural beauty was undeniable, but it was her eyes that stopped him completely. They held a depth of genuine emotion he hadn't encountered in years of dealing with people who calculated his net worth before learning his name. There was sadness there, bone-deep and familiar, but also a strength that money couldn't purchase, and power couldn't command. "You look tired," he said gently, surprising both of them with his directness. Sophia blinked, caught off guard. Customers rarely noticed her as anything more than an extension of their dining experience. "I'm fine, thank you. Just a long day." "I'm Lucas," he said, extending his hand across the pristine white tablecloth. "And I think we both know you're not fine." Something in his voice made Sophia pause. This wasn't the typical wealthy customer, trying to charm the help with practiced smiles and empty compliments. His eyes held their own sadness, a loneliness that his expensive clothes couldn't disguise and his billions couldn't cure. She shook his hand briefly, feeling the unexpected warmth of genuine human contact. "Sophia." Lucas made a decision that would change both their lives forever. "Sophia, I have a proposition that might sound crazy, but I need you to hear me out." The words hung between them like a bridge neither was sure they wanted to cross. For outside, the rain continued its relentless assault on the windows, as if the storm itself sensed the moment when two broken souls recognized something essential in each other. The restaurant's parking lot felt like a different world after Sophia finished her shift. Steam rose from the wet asphalt, while the city's neon lights painted everything in electric blues and reds. Lucas waited beside his silver Maserati, hands buried deep in his coat pockets, looking more like a man preparing for an execution than a business meeting. "I know this is unusual," he began, his breath visible in the cool night air. "But I need your help, and I think I might be able to help you too." Sophia crossed her arms, suddenly hyper-aware of the gulf between their worlds. Her worn coat and scuffed shoes seemed to emphasize every dollar that separated them. "What kind of help?" "I have a charity gala tomorrow night. The biggest donors in Silicon Valley will be there, along with investors I need to impress for my company's expansion." Lucas paused, studying her face, as if trying to solve an equation only she held the answer to. "The problem is everyone expects me to bring someone, and every woman in my social circle has an agenda." The wind picked up. Carrying the scent of rain and expensive cologne, Sophia waited, sensing there was more to this story than a simple escort request. "You're different," he continued, his voice dropping to something almost vulnerable. "When you looked at me in there, you saw a person, not a bank account. I need someone genuine by my side, someone who won't be performing for the cameras or calculating how to leverage our connection for personal gain. And in return." Lucas took a breath that seemed to cost him something precious. "I'll pay you $1 million for one evening. Just accompany me to this event, smile for photos, and help me get through the night. No strings attached, no expectations beyond that." The number hit Sophia like a physical blow. $1 million. It was more money than she'd ever dreamed of possessing, enough to cover her mother's experimental treatments, finish her education, and give her family the security she'd been desperately trying to provide through double shifts and sleepless nights. "Why me?" she whispered, her voice barely audible above the city's constant hum. "Because when you served my table tonight, you treated me like a human being. Do you know how rare that is in my world?" Lucas's voice carried a pain that surprised her with its rawness. Every conversation I have is calculated. Every smile I see is measuring my net worth. Every laugh is choreographed to achieve some goal. But you just saw someone who looked sad and asked if I needed more wine." Sophia's mind raced through possibilities that felt both like salvation and damnation. Her mother's latest test results had been worse than expected. The doctors wanted to try a new experimental treatment that cost $50,000 just to begin. Her sister Nina had been accepted to art school but couldn't afford to attend. This money could change everything, but accepting it felt like she was selling something precious about herself. "I'm not that kind of person," she said quietly. "I know," Lucas replied, stepping closer until she could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. "That's exactly why I'm asking you, Sophia. I've built my entire fortune on reading people, on understanding what motivates them. You're motivated by love for your family, by dreams you're willing to sacrifice for others. That's not something I can buy, but maybe it's something you'd be willing to share." The weight of his words settled between them like a contract written in desperation and sealed with hope. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed through the night, and Sophia wondered if it was racing toward an emergency or away from one. "This is just business," she said finally, though her voice trembled with uncertainty. "One night, like you said. After that, we go back to our separate worlds," agreed Lucas said, though something in his chest tightened at her words like a fist closing around his heart. "And I want half the money transferred to my mother's medical account tomorrow morning before the event. I need to know this is real." Lucas pulled out his phone and made a call that would change everything. As Sophia listened to him arrange the transfer with his assistant, she realized she had just crossed a line she couldn't uncross, made a choice that would either save her family or destroy something essential about who she was. The die was cast, and neither of them could predict where it would land. Sophia's tiny Oakland apartment had been transformed into something resembling a luxury salon by noon the next day. A team of stylists moved through her cramped living space like a well-choreographed dance, bringing with them garment bags that cost more than her monthly rent and jewelry that caught the afternoon light like captured stars. The bank transfer had appeared in her mother's account at exactly 9 a.m., just as Lucas had promised. $500,000 that represented hope in its most tangible form. Sophia had called the hospital immediately, securing her mother's spot in the experimental treatment program that could save her life. "Hold still, honey," murmured Alina, the lead stylist. As she worked magic with brushes and powders that transformed Sophia's face, Mr. Montenegro has excellent taste. This midnight blue gown is going to be perfect on you. As Sophia sat in the makeup chair, watching herself transform in the mirror, she wondered if she was making the biggest mistake of her life or the smartest decision she'd ever made. The woman looking back at her was beautiful, elegant, and completely unrecognizable. But her eyes remained the same honest brown that had first captured Lucas's attention. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister Nina. "Mom seems stronger. Today, the doctors say the new treatment could start next week. Whatever job opportunity you took, thank you for saving our family." The guilt and gratitude warred in Sophia's chest as the stylist fitted her with diamond earrings worth more than her education. She was living a lie, but it was a lie that might give her family the truth they deserved, a future without the shadow of death hanging over them. The black limousine arrived as the sun began to set, casting golden light through her apartment windows. When Lucas stepped out, adjusting his perfectly tailored tuxedo, Sophia could see his hands trembling slightly with nervousness. He had attended hundreds of high-profile events, but tonight felt different in a way that had nothing to do with business. When Sophia emerged from her building, Lucas forgot how to breathe. The transformation was stunning, but it was more than the designer gown or professional styling. She moved with a natural grace that couldn't be taught, her head held high despite the uncertainty flickering in her eyes. "You look incredible," he said softly as she approached the limousine. "Thank you," Sophia replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I feel like I'm wearing a costume." "We're all wearing costumes tonight," Lucas admitted as he helped her into the car. "The difference is yours is just on the outside." The limousine glided through San Francisco's streets toward the St. Francis Hotel, and an awkward silence filled the space between them. Sophia stared out the tinted windows at the city she'd known all her life, now seeing it from behind glass that separated her from her real world. "Tell me about our story," she said suddenly. "If people ask how we met—" Lucas loosened his tie slightly, a gesture that seemed to crack his polished facade. "We met 6 months ago at a gallery opening in the Mission District. You're an artist, which is true, and I was completely captivated by your talent and passion for social causes and our relationship. You've been taking it slow. You're not impressed by money, which drives me crazy and makes me work harder to earn your attention." He paused, studying her profile in the dim light. "The beautiful thing about our cover story is that most of it's true." Sophia felt heat rise in her cheeks. "This is just business, remember?" Of course, Lucas said, but his eyes held secrets he wasn't ready to share. The St. Francis Hotel ballroom was a vision of opulence that took Sophia's breath away. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing light across walls draped in silk and gold. Round tables adorned with white roses and flickering candles filled the space, each representing thousands of dollars in charity donations. As they entered, photographers immediately began snapping pictures. Lucas placed his hand gently on the small of Sophia's back, guiding her through the crowd with practiced ease. The touch sent an unexpected warmth through her body that had nothing to do with the champagne being served. Their first test came when Catherine Wells, wife of a prominent venture capitalist, glided toward them with the predatory smile of someone seeking fresh gossip. "Lucas, darling," Catherine purred, air-kissing his cheeks, while her sharp eyes dissected Sophia from head to toe. "You simply must introduce me to your mystery woman. We've all been dying to meet her." "Catherine, this is Sophia Chen," Lucas said, his arm sliding possessively around Sophia's waist. Sophia Catherine is one of San Francisco's most influential art patrons. Sophia extended her hand with a smile that felt more natural than she expected. "It's wonderful to meet you, Mrs. Wells. Lucas has told me so much about your work with emerging artists." Catherine's eyebrows rose with interest. "How refreshing to meet someone who knows about art rather than just stock portfolios. Tell me, dear, what's your medium?" "I work primarily in mixed media," Sophia replied, drawing on her real knowledge and passion. "Urban landscapes that explore the intersection between technology and human connection in modern cities." Lucas watched in amazement as Sophia seamlessly wove truth into their fiction, her genuine passion for art shining through the performance they were supposed to be giving. But as the evening progressed and more people approached them, Sophia began to notice something troubling.
Oh.
Lucas wasn't just performing for the crowd. He seemed to be studying her reactions, cataloging her responses to wealth and power with the same intensity she'd seen in his eyes that first night at the restaurant. When he excused himself to speak privately with a group of investors, leaving her alone at their table, Sophia felt the first flicker of unease. She was supposed to be helping him navigate the social complexities of the evening, but she was beginning to suspect that Lucas Montenegro had reasons for choosing her that went far deeper than her honest eyes and genuine smile. The realization hit her like ice water. She might not be the only one with secrets tonight. The hotel suite Lucas had reserved for after the gala was a study in understated luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of San Francisco's glittering skyline. While soft jazz played from hidden speakers, Sophia kicked off her heels and sank onto the velvet sofa, emotionally exhausted from hours of performing for cameras and making small talk with people who measured human worth in stock options. "You were incredible tonight," Lucas said, loosening his bow tie. As he moved to the bar, "I've never seen anyone handle Catherine Wells that skillfully. And when Senator Morrison asked about your art, the way you talked about social responsibility through creative expression, absolutely brilliant." Sophia watched him pour 2 glasses of wine, noting how his hands still trembled slightly. "Lucas, can I ask you something? Anything? Why did you really choose me? And don't say it's because I treated you like a human being. There are plenty of decent people in this city who need money." Lucas froze, the wine bottle suspended halfway to the glass. When he looked at her, the polished mask he'd worn all evening finally cracked, revealing something raw and vulnerable underneath. "Because you remind me of someone I used to know," he said quietly. "Someone I failed." Sophia leaned forward, sensing they were approaching the heart of whatever had been driving Lucas's actions. "Who?" Lucas set down the bottle and moved to the window, his reflection ghost-like against the city lights. "Her name was Isabella. She was a waitress at a small cafe near my office when I was just starting the company. Brilliant, beautiful, and completely unimpressed by my grand plans to change the world. What happened to her? She needed money for her father's surgery. Cancer, like your mother. I was so focused on building my empire that I didn't realize how desperate she'd become." His voice cracked slightly. "She took a loan from some very dangerous people. When she couldn't pay it back, they made sure she never could." Sophia felt her blood turn to ice. "Lucas, what are you saying?" "I'm saying Isabella died because I was too selfish and obsessed to help the woman I loved when she needed me most." He turned to face her, tears glistening in his eyes. "I'm saying I've spent the last 5 years trying to find a way to make amends for that failure." The room seemed to spin around Sophia as the implications of his words sank in. "You've done this before, found desperate women and offered them money." "No," Lucas said quickly, moving toward her. "You're the first, but not for the reasons you think." Sophia stood up, backing away from him. "Then why? What aren't you telling me?" Lucas ran his hands through his hair, destroying the perfect styling. "Because I've been watching you for months, Sophia. I know about your mother's diagnosis, your sister's college acceptance, your shifts at 3 different jobs trying to make ends meet. You've been watching me." The betrayal hit her like a physical blow. "I saw you at a gallery opening in the Mission District 6 months ago. You were standing in front of this painting, completely absorbed, and you had tears in your eyes because the artist had captured something beautiful about human suffering. You looked exactly like Isabella did the first time I met her." Sophia felt sick. So this whole thing, the restaurant, the $1 million, it's all been some elaborate, guilt-driven fantasy where you get to play savior? "It started that way," Lucas admitted, his voice breaking. "But it became something else the moment you spoke to me. You're not Isabella, Sophia. You're stronger than she was, braver than I am, and more genuine than anyone in my world. I need to leave." Sophia grabbed her purse and headed for the door. "Wait!" Lucas's voice stopped her. "There's something else you need to know." Sophia turned, dreading what else he might confess. "The money I transferred to your mother's account, It's clean, and it's yours no matter what happens between us. But the experimental treatment she's starting next week, I didn't just pay for it. I've been funding the research for the last 2 years. The world tilted sideways. What? The drug they want to give your mother? It's based on research I've been privately funding since Isabella died. Your mother is going to be one of the first people to receive a treatment that might not have existed if I hadn't failed someone I loved. Sophia sank back onto the sofa, overwhelmed by the complexity of what Lucas had revealed. You manipulated my entire life. Yes, he said simply. And I'll regret that for the rest of my life. But I won't regret that your mother might live because of it. They stood in silence, the weight of his confession settling between them like a bridge neither was sure they wanted to cross. Outside, the city continued its relentless pulse, indifferent to the human drama playing out high above its streets. I should hate you, Sophia whispered. You should, Lucas agreed. But I don't. She looked up at him, seeing not the billionaire who had orchestrated her circumstances, but the broken man who had been trying to save everyone except himself. I can't decide if you're the most generous person I've ever met or the most selfish. Probably both, Lucas said with a bitter laugh. Sophia made a decision that surprised them both. Instead of leaving, she stood and walked to where he waited by the window. Show me the real you, Lucas. Not the performance, not the guilt, not the grand gestures. Just you. When he kissed her, it tasted like regret and hope in equal measure. And Sophia realized that somewhere between the lies and the truth she had fallen for the man who had saved her mother's life by destroying any chance at honest love between them. 3 weeks later, Sophia stood in her mother's hospital room watching Maria sleep peacefully for the first time in months. The experimental treatment was working better than anyone had dared hope. Her mother's color had returned, her appetite was strong, and the latest scans showed the tumors shrinking at an unprecedented rate. She looks like herself again, whispered Nina, who had arrived from her first semester at art school, paid for by the remainder of Lucas's money. Sophia nodded, unable to speak past the gratitude and confusion warring in her chest. She hadn't seen Lucas since that night in the hotel suite when everything between them had shifted from business arrangement to something far more complicated and real. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Dr. Martinez entered with a clipboard and the kind of smile that delivered good news. The results are extraordinary, he said. Maria's response to the treatment is exceeding our most optimistic projections. We're looking at full remission within the next few months. Sophia felt her knees buckle with relief. Her mother was going to live. The nightmare that had consumed their family for months was finally ending. As Dr. Martinez left, Maria stirred and opened her eyes. Mia, you look troubled for someone whose mother just received a miracle. Mama, how do you forgive someone who saves your life through lies? Maria struggled to sit up, and Sophia rushed to help her. Tell me about this man who has you so confused. Sophia found herself explaining everything. The restaurant meeting, the $1 million proposition, the discovery of Lucas's surveillance and manipulation, and the revelation that his guilt over Isabella had driven him to orchestrate their entire relationship. And you love him, Maria said when Sophia finished. How can I love someone who manipulated me? The same way he can love you enough to save a stranger's life to earn the chance to know you. Maria took her daughter's hand. Intention matters, but so do results. This man made terrible choices, but they came from a broken heart trying to heal itself by healing others. Before Sophia could respond, Nina burst into the room. Sophia, you need to see this. It's all over the news. She held up her phone, and Sophia's breath caught. The headline read, Tech billionaire Lucas Montenegro dies in car accident. The phone slipped from Sophia's trembling hands as she read the details. Lucas had been driving to the hospital to see her when he lost control in the rain. He'd been carrying a letter addressed to her along with legal documents transferring ownership of his entire company to a foundation dedicated to funding medical research and arts education. No, Sophia whispered, the word torn from her chest like a physical piece of her heart. The funeral was held at Grace Cathedral. It's filled with hundreds of people who had known Lucas as a business associate, competitor, or acquaintance. Sophia sat in the back row, watching strangers eulogize a man they had never truly understood. When it was over, Lucas's assistant approached her with an envelope bearing her name in his familiar handwriting. The letter was 3 pages of careful script that Lucas must have written and rewritten dozens of times. Sophia, if you're reading this, it means I never got the chance to tell you that meeting you was the first time in 5 years that I felt truly alive. I know I manipulated your circumstances, and I know that betrayal can never be fully forgiven. But I need you to understand that everything I did because I recognized something essential in you that I thought I'd lost forever when Isabella died. The capacity to love without condition, to sacrifice without resentment, to remain genuine. In a world that rewards performance. You saved me as much as I tried to save you. In your eyes, I saw not the broken man who failed to protect someone he loved, but the possibility of becoming someone worthy of love again. The foundation I've created will ensure that no family ever has to choose between financial survival and medical care the way you did. It will provide grants for artists like you who have the vision to show us truth through beauty. And it will stand as proof that money, used with love rather than guilt, can actually heal the world. I hope someday you can forgive me for the lies. I hope even more that you will remember the truth beneath them, that you are extraordinary, that your love transformed me, and that knowing you was worth every consequence. Be happy, Sophia. Create art that makes people feel less alone. Let someone love you honestly. And know that somewhere, a broken man learned how to love again because a waitress with paint-stained fingers looked at him and saw a human being instead of a bank account. Forever grateful. Lucas. 6 months later, Sophia's first solo art exhibition opened in a gallery in the Mission District. The paintings were urban landscapes that explored technology's intersection with human connection. But they also told the story of love found and lost, of manipulation and redemption.
Ow.
Of the complex ways people try to save each other and themselves. The centerpiece was a portrait she'd painted from memory, Lucas, as she'd first seen him. Staring out a rain-streaked window with lonely eyes that held depths money couldn't fill. Below it, a small placard read, "For Isabella, who deserved better, and for Lucas, who finally learned how to love without guilt." Maria, fully recovered and radiant with health, stood beside her daughter as people moved through the gallery. "He would have been proud of you, Mia," Sophia nodded, touching the simple gold necklace Lucas's assistant had delivered with his letter. Inside the locket was a photo of Isabella, and on the back an inscription, "Love without fear." As the evening wound down and the last visitors filtered out, Sophia remained standing before the portrait of Lucas. She had learned to love him not, despite his flaws and manipulations, but because they had revealed a man desperately trying to transform guilt into grace, trying to earn redemption through service to others. The rain began to fall outside, drumming against the gallery windows with the same rhythm that had brought them together that first night at Palazzo Milano. Sophia smiled through her tears, finally understanding that love doesn't always arrive. Honestly, but it can still be real. Sometimes the most profound connections are forged in the space between manipulation and genuine feeling, where broken people recognize their shared humanity and choose to heal together. She whispered a quiet thank you to the rain-streaked window, to the memory of a man who had paid millions for one night, but whose love had lasted forever, and to the understanding that some gifts come wrapped in betrayal but contain the seeds of transformation. In the reflection of the gallery window, she saw not just herself, but the ghost of Lucas Montenegro. Finally at peace, finally forgiven, finally free, the end.